Hey everybody, welcome to the Leek. I'm John as always, and 2019 was not a great year for Wizards of the Coast, or Magic in general. There were a large number of controversies. Now, there were also positives, and this is a part one of a series of videos that I'm going to do here at the end of the year. This one is going to be about all the controversies, but I am also going to do, the positive things that came out of Magic this year, and I'm also going to do a video on my predictions and hopes for 2020. But today, we're going to talk about all the controversies. Now, most of these controversies are definitely to be blamed on Wizards or Hasbro or some combination of the two. Some of them are a little bit beyond their control, and, it's not fair to bash WotC on them. But WotC had a bad year. I've been back in Magic for about 9 years now, and prior to that, I was in Magic for 5 or 6 years in the mid to late 90s. And this is the worst year I've ever seen. This is the first year where I've seen enough mistakes and enough cracks where I've started to think Magic could actually die at some point. Is it dying next year? No. Is it dying in the next 5 years? Probably not. But this was a really bad year. And for the first time, I was able to see perhaps the end. Hopefully, it won't happen because I love this game. And like I said, we're going to talk about positive stuff that happened this year in the next video. But let's talk about the controversies. So you might not even remember it happened this year, but way back at the end of January 2019, coverage as we know it for Grand Prix went bye-bye. It was with Grand Prix New Jersey, which was not going to be a covered Grand Prix, that people noticed that there were no text coverage results. There was no round-by-round coverage that we used to have. WotC, on I think the second day it was, announced that, yep, we're not going to be doing any more posting of coverage text results while we focus more on the Mythic Championships. Then people said that weekend, whoa, wait a minute. I don't see any schedule for video coverage. Is that going away too? At which point everybody went silent. And then, of course, a few days later, we learned that, yep, video coverage as we knew it of Grand Prix was going to go away. We were still going to get coverage of Pro Tours, and oh boy, were we going to get coverage of Mythic Championships. But Grand Prix coverage, which was generally week in, week out, there were definitely some weekends where it was all limited GPs that they didn't use to cover, wouldn't have coverage. But as we knew it, we were no longer going to be able to watch anything but the highest level of Magic play. We weren't going to get the Grand Prix. People were noticeably upset about this. They were very angry about it. There were a lot of people who really enjoyed watching those Grand Prix. Some people claimed that they wouldn't go to Grand Prix if there wasn't coverage. I find that a little bit weird. The odds are very, very low that you're ever going to get on coverage by going to a Grand Prix. Obviously very low now. But it was still an awful thing to lose, and it was obvious because Wizards wanted to up their coverage of the Mythic Championships. They wanted to have these little arenas with pyrotechnics and hire very expensive people to come and do the coverage for them, as well as do the MPL weekly events, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Luckily-ish, maybe a month or so later, Channel Fireball event said, hey, we know you people want coverage of these events, so we're going to do what we can, and we're going to do a very limited number of events and have coverage. We're going to have the coverage team you know and like of Channel Fireball personalities, and it's not going to be everything, and it's not even going to be most things, but we're going to give you some video coverage. And they've done a decent job at it. The few weeks that we've had Grand Prix coverage, it's been fine. They know what they're doing, they're competent, but boy, is it not like it used to be, where you could always turn it on and see official top level of that weekend Magic events, and it's been an unfortunate loss, and I don't think it paid off for them either. Fake Twitch views were very much in the controversial news this year with the coverage. As we had talked about, they were going to move much more towards covering Mythic Championships. Well, the Mythic Championships did incredibly well in viewership. In fact, utterly breaking all previous Magic records by orders of magnitude, getting hundreds of thousands of viewers watching. So how did we go from a few tens of thousands of people watching Grand Prix to like 170, 180,000 people watching a Mythic Championship? Well, fake views is how we did it. Now, this is a very interesting topic. So what would happen here is, while the Mythic Championships arena ones, not the paper ones, were happening, Wizards bought a whole bunch of ads on various websites that had the Twitch stream embedded. I've seen this a number of times from many different streamers, and I think that it's actually totally fine advertising. You load up a website, and sure, that website's about League of Legends or something, but up at the top is an ad for Magic Arena, and the Twitch stream is right inside of that ad. That's cool. If I have any interest in that, if I didn't know what was going on, if I want to just watch a big tournament, cool, there it is. I can click it and watch it. I think it's a really good bit of advertising. I have no qualms with them using that style of advertising. But those ads create viewers even if they're not watching the ad. Even if they don't click it, they are counted as a viewer because the stream is open on that page. That's also okay, but Wizards absolutely trumpeted the fact that they had so many people watching their streams. They are very proud of their 180, 150, 130,000 viewers that they had for the Mythic Championships. Of course, when you go onto Twitch and you have these inflated numbers, that's going to make people watch it as well. But the numbers aren't real. When you look at the users in chat, which you can do by clicking the little icon, you can see the name of everybody who is actually logged into Twitch and watching. It was a fraction, a tiny fraction of that total amount. The chat was about as fast as a chat would ever have been for a Magic stream. It was nothing like a 150,000 person stream chat, which is unusable. I've been in a couple and it's not fun. So this was, of course, a big thing because Wizards never really admitted to any of this. I haven't seen them talk about their high viewership lately, and they're definitely buying less and less ads because they're getting less and less numbers every single Mythic Championship that comes up. But this was a big controversy. People very quickly turning from being very excited that Magic was suddenly doing amazingly well on Twitch to realizing, oh, it's actually all artificial. Well, let's tackle a big one. The MPL. The MPL has been plagued by controversy since it started. The MPL, for those who somehow don't know, perhaps you don't follow the competitive stuff, was a hand-picked selection of 32 of the best Magic players in the world who were given a salary to be a Magic player. They were auto-invited to all of the big tournaments, including the very exclusive ones, and if they wanted to, were given an additional $25,000 a year to stream. The initial selection process for this was just to take the best players from last year in ranked order. There were a couple of people who said, no, I don't want to, and there was a couple of people they skipped over in order to go a little bit deeper on the list, not by much, to make sure that there was some Asia Pacific region representation, which is important. I'm cool with that. That's awesome. Now, for the MPL's life, which has been under a year at this point, or maybe just over a year, I can't remember if it was the end of December or the start of January, we didn't really know what it did. It was a league, but were they going to play matches? How do you get into it? How do you get out of it? What happens to this MPL? And it took them a very, very, very long time to actually announce, and from my understanding, even figure out how you were going to get in or out of the MPL and what it was actually going to do. Now, what it actually ended up doing was there was a league and they played matches on Twitch, and they played in these weird like brackets of 4 or something. It was very confusing. For whatever reason, Magic has had a 25-year history of running really good tournaments, and now the tournaments are always wacky and changing formats and double secret elimination and stuff like this. But the winners of those tournaments, those weekly MPL tournaments, would actually get buys for the Mythic Championship, which were massively valuable. It essentially guaranteed you a 5-digit payday by going to the Mythic Championship. Now, those MPL weekly streams, they didn't buy views for those. Nobody watched. It was very poorly attended, very poorly watched, and as such is actually going away in 2020 while they retool it to figure out how to make anybody even care. They were pre-recorded, they were weirdly edited, they were hosted by Kibler, and I think Becca Scott was involved, and it was really awkward and stilted because they were doing this commentary of pre-recorded stuff, and it didn't work. Now, that's not all that happened with the MPL this year. There were some pretty big name departures and additions to the team. Up first in April, late April, Owen Turtenwald was sort of mysteriously removed from the MPL and just sort of disappeared. It pretty quickly came out that he has had a significant history of sexual harassment and incredible mistreatment of women. All stories point to him being a real creep. As such, he was quietly removed. Still nothing has been said about his explicit removal. He eventually came back after several months of disappearing from the internet as a Hearthstone player who did post a very short thing saying, you know what, I've been a really, really crappy person. I'll try to do better. Now, this obviously is beyond Wizards of the Coast's responsibilities. They couldn't probably, as far as I know, unless there was known information, know that this was going to happen. So this, of course, isn't a controversy that can be held against Wizards of the Coast. But again, it's another black mark kind of on the year. Owen was replaced by Autumn Burchett, who had won their first Pro Tour previously earlier this year. And I think they were a great choice. They were at the top of their game. They had won the highest tournament they could possibly win. They were a great choice. They were an obvious inclusion into the MPL, plus great representation for non-binary. Then, very shortly after, Jerry Thompson posted on Twitter saying, I'm out. He was in the MPL after last year very publicly going to Worlds, getting his way to the top Magic Tournament of the Year, World Championship, and then the day of not showing up as an explicit protest against pros not being paid well enough, Magic Pro life being a pipe dream, and Wizards just not supporting people enough. Arguably, his protest is what led to the creation of the MPL, at least in part. And here he was saying the MPL is mismanaged, it is not doing what it's supposed to do, I don't want to be a part of it, and he resigned. It was amicable enough. Wizards of the Coast wished him well, and it was a complete difference to the way that Owen just disappeared. Very, very, very shortly after that, Yuya Watanabe was caught cheating. He was playing Tron, and he had all of his Tron lands, the Urza's Mines, Urza's Power Plants, and Urza's Towers, marked on the sleeves. Towers had a mark on one corner, Power Plants had marks on another, and Mines had marks on another. So by glancing at the top of his deck, he could notice what was coming up, if he was going to have all of his Tron mana or not. There were some conspiracy theories over this, that somebody had set him up and given him marked sleeves. Perhaps it was a mark that just came up through playing with those sleeves. But if you're specifically bending the corner of your Urza's Mines, and then when you're holding an Urza's Tower, you bend a different corner just by playing with it, that's pretty damn weird. So it was, to me, blatantly obvious that this was cheating. To the judges involved, to Wizards of the Coast, it was blatantly obvious. He was banned, he was removed from the Hall of Fame, and he was removed from the MPL. That left 2 more open slots that needed to be filled, and they filled that with Jess Estefan. She was the first female to win a Grand Prix. She won a team Grand Prix. Now, there are people who will say, oh, she won a team Grand Prix, so her partners carried her, so why is she on it? She won a Grand Prix as part of a team. She won most of her matches as well as the partners on her team. It's not really any less that she won a team GP. So no problem with Jess Estefan being added. Again, it got some female representation to the team, which was great. Happy with that. And then they added Savich. I'm not going to say his real name because I can't pronounce it. Savich is a streamer. He's been a streamer for quite a while, well known as a Hearthstone streamer, and at the time was real into auto chess before Underlords and Teamfight Tactics and whatnot came out. He's not really been that much in Magic. He was invited to the Mythic Invitational as just a streamer, and he did decently well there, but no reason to invite him to the MPL. But they invited him and gave him that contract. Now, I have no ill will towards him accepting the contract. If Wizards of the Coast signs a check to me for $50,000, I'm going to play Arena all day, every day. If that's what the contract says that I have to do. You bet. So no ill will towards him, but it was a stupid move from Wizards of the Coast to pick him up onto this team. It was suddenly throwing the Magic Pro League into this weird promotional thing where now who knows how you got into it, because all you had to do was be a popular streamer for another game and you could be in the Pro League too. This, of course, was completely exacerbated by Savich not streaming Magic. He barely streams it anymore. He definitely does it just to keep up appearances to fulfill the contractual obligations. He explicitly will not go to any paper tournaments because it would cost him more to go to a paper tournament and not stream than it would to just not bother going to that paper tournament where he's probably not going to win any money anyways. Unfortunately, Savich did get a lot of harassment from the Magic community, which I do not stand for. He did not deserve that harassment. Yes, he took a contract that he was only going to fill the bare minimum of. He didn't care about the game. $50,000, I'd do the same. And I'm pretty sure so would you. So no problems with him doing it, but I do have big problems with the Wizards of the Coast. It was a stupid idea. It was a waste of money. It tarnished the image of the Pro League. It was bad. So here we are at the end of the year. The MPL now has more direction. We now know who's in it next year, who's not in it. We know how you get into the Rivals League, which is how you then get into the MPL. We know more about it. It's still incredibly top heavy. It's still very much a get in and you're gonna probably be in for a very long time. So it's not really gonna help any random person out. I'm not going to get to the MPL. You're not going to get to the MPL. That's just the reality of it. But at least we have some direction forward. Leeks. Leeks are good. They're tasty. They're part of a nutritious diet. Leaks are bad. They ruin the hype for sets coming out. They steal previews from content creators. It's way less exciting to have a set come out and I've seen the cards for months in advance. Not a big fan of leaks, but a lot of leaks happened this year. Right at the start of the year, the orcs were let go from MTGO. What's an orc? It is an online something customer. It's a customer representative for online, and they're called orcs because, haha, cute fantasy stuff. They were all let go right at the start of the year. I think it was the first week of January. There were a couple who were very, very, very disgruntled. One of whom posted a whole bunch of stuff that I have no idea how they had access to because they were work from home contractors. They didn't work in Renton. They weren't at the offices, but they clearly had access to some information that I don't understand why they did. They leaked several names of things. They leaked the name Mana Strike, which turned out to be the Minion Masters Clash Royale style phone game that is now out here in Canada and some other places. They mentioned Project M, which turned out to be Valor's Reach, or Project Blitz, I think that was. And they announced a bunch of stuff about War of the Spark. At the time, we didn't even know War of the Spark was called War of the Spark, but somebody said, hey, it's called War of the Spark. They said that Gideon died. They gave Gideon's card. They gave a bunch of information about War of the Spark, and it was all correct. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how they had access to it, but they did, and it caused some leaks. Then, towards the end of this year, we had somebody who went to a Walgreens in the US and bought some packs of Theros Beyond Death, a set that you'll notice is not currently out even yet. But sitting on the shelves of Walgreens, apparently, were some packs of Theros. They bought them, they opened them, they took pictures of all the cards, and suddenly, just like that, 30% of the set had been previewed. There are some conspiracy theories, as there always is, that this was Wizards purposely leaking them. I don't buy that. We had pictures of the actual person who opened them in his LGS where he brought them to, so I don't believe that Wizards of the Coast did this on purpose. So what actually happened? I don't entirely know. It's possible this person's being untruthful and they actually have access to a distributor and grabbed the cards, or the print facility and grabbed some of the packs. I don't know. I don't know that at the time distributors would have even had the cards. I don't know their exact shipping schedule, but it seemed it was way too early for a store to have the cards, and it seemed even too early for distributors to have the cards yet. Now, the everyone is okay and it was just stupidity reasoning or explanation is that distributors did have the cards. Walgreens had an order. The distributor needed, 6 packs of cards because at Walgreens, of course, it's going to be the cardboard covering of one pack. And they had, their 3 packs of Eldraine left in a box. They grabbed those 3. They needed to open another box of cards, and so they grabbed this one and then grabbed 3 more cardboard packs and put them in the box, failing to realize that they opened a not yet released box of cards and sent the wrong ones. That's my best guess for the, never attribute anything to malice that you can attribute to stupidity explanation. But who knows what actually happened there, but it was bad. It was such a large portion of the set already previewed. Who knows if that stole preview cards from people? I don't know, but I don't like it. I don't like when leaks happen. I like the work that they put into preview season. The War of the Spark preview season was really good. The fact that every card got previewed in story order, minus a couple of mistakes, was really, really cool. When Wizards of the Coast really dives into a really well-built schedule and program for their previews, it's really fun, and leaks destroy that. Yes, I know some of you really want your cards really, really fast right now, but you can wait. You can wait to open your present under the tree. So please don't support leaks. Please don't leak. Let's see if we can have a leakless 2020. Arena had a lot of controversies. So Arena, just all of it is the next controversy we're going to talk about. Arena, of course, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of it, specifically to do with the limited. If you are just playing standard, I think it's the best way to play standard right now. Absolutely. And I will still load it up now and then and jam a little bit of standard. But the number of problems with that piece of software that have happened this year is absolutely wild. Of course, the big thing for me is limited. They have not touched limited this entire year. We are still drafting with bots. It is still a miserable experience. Eldraine was an absolute case study in how different a format can be on Arena and off of Arena. In Arena, it was nothing but Mill, which was a deck that existed in the format in real life and on MTGO. But you couldn't draft it every single time without fail. In fact, you rarely could draft it. Now that it has been fixed and Mill doesn't exist in Eldraine on Arena, now it's nothing but aggro. Eldraine, the format where taking all the 7 dwarves and having 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop aggro is the name of the game. That is not what Eldraine is like anywhere but Arena, but on Arena, that's how you got to play. That aside, there were, of course, all kinds of other problems with this piece of software. The performance somehow got worse and worse and worse and worse as the beta wore on. I've been playing Arena since late 2017, before I was even allowed to talk about it, before the NDA lifted. And the program has just gotten worse in terms of stability and frames per second and crashes and disconnects and things like that. We got to a point where at a Mythic Championship, players got disconnected and lost their game. They lost the game state. Whatever was happening in that game, the entire thing was thrown out and they had to restart the game. That is a travesty for this piece of software. Luckily, I didn't hear anything about it at the last Mythic Championship, but that was just back in October that happened, where people were losing their game state and having to restart at a $750,000 prize purse tournament. That's shocking. Absolutely shocking, especially since the game is now officially not a beta anymore. Beyond that, we have all kinds of things like the delayed friends list, the friends list finally being released and it not really doing too much. You can't add friends in game, stuff like that. You still have to know their number, which means you're still basically just direct challenging them. The constant addition of the pets that nobody asked for and nobody wants, the constant monetization with the Magic Pass or whatever it's called now, the Battle Pass, where you have to buy this in order to get your extra gems and get your extra packs and your extra prizes. All kinds of announcements, like announcing Historic and then absolutely kneecapping it by announcing Pioneer. And then, of course, Brawladays, which just popped up at the end of the year. I'm glad I didn't record this video in late November like I wanted to, because the controversies just kept coming. So yeah, Arena, I don't want to spend all day on this. I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I could do a full 50-minute video on this alone. And this is meant to be a quicker-ish video where we don't focus on it that much. So Arena, just all of it was one of the big controversies this year. Standard bannings were a big thing this year, with several cards being banned. We, of course, had Oko, Veil, Once Upon a Time, and Field of the Dead banned. Now, this has been a multi-year controversy. In the last 3 years, we have had 13 cards banned. That's more cards than have ever been banned in Standard than the previous 16 years. We just didn't used to have Standard bans, except for that one time that we did. And now suddenly cards are getting banned left and right. There's a couple of schools of thoughts on this. Some people are actually pretty happy about this. I'm not one of them. The people who are happy about this say that this means that Wizards of the Coast is willing to push game design. They're willing to push cards. They're willing to make, entire sets higher powered, because now they're willing to ban a lot more, which means they're able to, just explore a little bit more. If something gets a little bit too powerful, oops, let's get rid of it. I'm not a big fan of that. I would prefer that sets are designed, balanced, and released without cards that have to be banned. Does that mean that maybe we're going to be a little bit lower powered? Sure, but I'm pretty okay with that. But boy, standard bannings have been just a non-stop story for the past few years. It must be the new future, and maybe it's again a thing with Arena. With Arena, much like Hearthstone, they can just instantly say, oh, get that card out. Oh, that card's not working. Get that out. Oh, persistent petitioners, better ban that in every format. They can change things on the fly. That's not great for the paper game, but maybe that's the future that we're living in. So next year, I'll save this a little bit more for the predictions and hopes video, but next year I expect that we're going to see just as many bans. The Magic story was in the news all the time this year, and never, ever, ever for the right reasons. The Magic story at the start of this year was pretty bland. We were halfway through the Ravnica story arc, with Ravnica Allegiance not really having a story, just like Guilds of Ravnica. There were little web stories released, but they were little slices of life of various guild members, but nothing moving the story forward. It had been a long time since anything had happened in the story, but we knew it was building to War of the Spark. War of the Spark had a novel released with it that I was excited for. I was ready to read it. I wasn't expecting amazing things. The secret here is that Magic literature has never been great. At best, it's been good. You know, the Ixalan story, that was good. The Dominaria story, I enjoyed it. There was good story, but I didn't have high hopes for this novel. I read the novel and I honestly didn't hate it the way that other people did. I don't think it was, you know, unforgivable. I don't think it was trash. I think it was just really mediocre fantasy writing. Like I said, the secret with all those old books, the Brothers' War and whatnot, is that you read them when you were a little teenager. There's a lot of books that I read when I was 14 that were the best life-changing books ever and that don't hold up anymore. So I was okay with the book. It wasn't great, but whatever. Dak Faden dying was, of course, a big sticking point for a lot of people, but honestly, whoever died would have been a big sticking point. Everybody was going to have fans, and whoever died, people were going to be mad. But following this book that didn't have great reviews and most people weren't really a big fan of, we went into Core Set 2020, which had no story, which was unfortunate because Core Set 2019 did have the Nicol Bolas Ugin story that was decent, good bit of lore building and, kind of explaining the history of Magic. That led us into Throne of Eldraine, which did not have any web stories or a book, but it had an ebook. I read this ebook on the plane to and back on my honeymoon to Victoria, and it was fine. It was boring. It was real boring. Turns out there's not that much to do with fairy tales on Eldraine. There were a couple of little fairy tale things, but the book was very much like a pair of youthful knights going on their quest. And occasionally they would see a mouse that had a top hat on, and that was about it. So it was a fine book, but it was very generic fantasy and very forgettable. I've already forgotten most of it. And then we had Forsaken. Forsaken was the sequel to War of the Spark. It's the continuation of the War of the Spark story. It sees Rat and Kaya and other people chasing down the remaining people from that war, Liliana and Dovin and Tezzeret. And the book, I didn't read it, but by all accounts, it was abysmally bad writing. I will say, as one bit of defense, one of the lines that people really took to heart and memed on and took as an example of how bad this was the one where a Johnny says, "Aye, girl," and then smiles a Leonin smile. A lot of people didn't seem to understand that "aye" is like the Scottish, like "aye," and so he's like, "Aye, girl." Whereas a lot of people thought it was like, "Hey, girl, hey," and really memed on that. And it's just like, you're showing how illiterate you are that you don't know what that says. The smiling Leonin smile, that was bad writing. But I have no problem with that "aye, girl." Stop joking about that. It's a stupid joke, and it really just no. Just no. But the book had a very short section where Chandra, who has had a years-long, never quite on again, frequently off again, non-platonic relationship or interest with Nissa. In this book, out of nowhere, Chandra is now talking about how Gideon had really nice abs, and oh yeah, Nissa, she never liked her. It was always platonic. She was always just a friend. She has always liked men. So not only did they nix the Nissa-Chandra relationship, they salted the earth. They said, no, Chandra doesn't like her anymore, never liked her, and never even was potentially interested in the same sex. This led to a considerable backlash, as it should have, utterly retconning the character, ripping out some great representation that had been fostered over years in the book. It really pissed people off. People took to the internet, took to Twitter, took to everywhere they could to be very, very angry about this. And Wizards of the Coast released a couple of different statements that mentioned that, Chandra's exploring and probably is totally pansexual. Probably, but maybe her and Nissa just aren't together anymore. It was a very diplomatic thing, very much a, sure, the book said that, but we're going to pretend the book didn't say that. Now, not too long after that, a couple of days later, Greg Weisman, the author of these books, who I assume must not be under contract anymore if he said this, said, hey, I'm the author. I wrote that. I was told that this relationship was not going to be explored any further and I was to end it. He said that he had an ending for it that he thought was good, but then through editing with the publisher and WotC, it came down to what happened in the book. Basically throwing WotC under the bus, saying, hey, it was their plan to end this. They were never, ever going to explore this. It was my job to end it. I tried to end it the way that I wanted it to, and this is what we ended up with thanks to them. And then everything went silent. WotC has never replied to that. WotC has said nothing. And so who knows? We have to take, one story against the other story. I'm willing to believe Greg Weisman's side a little bit more. Sure, he may not be a great writer, but it sounds like he was kind of pushed into a corner and then edited into oblivion with this. So, yeah. But that's not all. Yet another example of me being very glad that I didn't do this video at the beginning of December like I had planned. Surprise! More controversies on the story front. We were out of nowhere told that Theros will not be getting a book. It will not be getting an ebook. It will... They haven't said this, but they've also not said it after being asked multiple times, not be web stories for it. There will be no story. Instead, we are getting these little pictures of the card as they're previewed during preview season with like a sentence on it helping to explain the story. I don't think it's going to go well. In my news video a week ago, I mentioned how the Theros trailer left me utterly bewildered about what was happening because there was no real narrative to it. And now we learn that we're not really going to get that much of a narrative to it. We're going to get some pictures of the cards, and we're going to get a few sentences for each card. Not even each card. Each card they pick to tell us the story, and that's all we're going to get. And that is awful. That's really awful. I really enjoy the Magic world. I really enjoy the Magic story. That's why I'm looking forward to the Magic Netflix series. That's why I pick up these random Magic games to get more, experience with the characters and the world and the lore and the art. And to hear that we're not going to get a story at all for Theros, that's a bad way to cap off a very bad year for the Magic story. So 2020, it's going to start off bad. I hope they can do something to right this ship, but Magic story, one of the biggest controversies this year. So that's going to wrap it up for my controversies of 2019. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing a positives of 2019. So if this has got you down, don't worry. We've got some up stuff coming pretty shortly. And I'm also going to do my predictions and hopes for 2020. Now, if you like what I do, it would be awesome if you shared, and subscribed. It really helps the channel out. You can also find me over on Twitch, where I play Limited and all kinds of stuff like that. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, the usual places, patreon.com/manaleek if you want to help out financially that way. And also you can go to inkedgaming.com and use the promo code MANALEEK10, all one word, 10 is the number. For the next week and a half or so, January 1st, that promo code's going to go away. And instead, you're going to go to a different website. I'll talk about that when that happens. But if you want that 10% off, you better use it very shortly because it's going to go away. Everybody's is going to go away. But if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all next time.